Hey, Ross here from The Clean Handbook, and today we are going to be discussing how to fix shoulder pain fast. Now, the shoulder is a very unstable joint. It's one of the most unstable joints in the body. Let's take the hip as an example. So the hip and the shoulder are very similar joints in terms of they are ball and socket joints. So in the hip, you've got the head of the femur, and that sits in a big socket in the hip, and that's what keeps it in place. The shoulder, however, instead of having this big clamp around it like it does with the hip, instead you've got the head of the humerus, and the glenoid fossa is essentially just that little tiny bit there. So there's much less surface area grabbing onto it, and that makes it much more stable. The benefits of that and why it's like that is because we have such a big variety of movement in the shoulder itself. So to start with, the shoulder is a very unstable joint, and that's one of the reasons why it's very common to get shoulder pain. Now, the best way to get rid of shoulder pain is to get it diagnosed by a professional, and they will tell you what the problem is and then the best way to fix that problem. But we can't do that right now, so what we are going to do is give you one thing that is very common in terms of why the shoulder starts hurting, and this helps in 90% of the cases that we see that people have shoulder pain that needs getting rid of. Now, because we can't diagnose you specifically, what we are going to show you is the most likely thing that will help your shoulder pain, or the thing that contributes to most reasons why we get shoulder pain in the first place. However, there is one condition called anterior capsular laxity, which is essentially around the shoulder you have a capsule. So here you've got the head of the humerus, you've got the fossa here, and then surrounding or going from the glenoid fossa to the head of the humerus, you have what's called a joint capsule, and that essentially seals around it. Now, anterior capsular laxity is if this is the front of the shoulder, what that is when the shoulder comes back into this position, the capsule here gets stretched. Now, because the capsule isn't a muscle, it's more of a tendon sort of fibrosity. Once it gets stretched, it can't come back to normal. It's stretched forever. So if you hurt your shoulder in this position, you want to be very careful about doing what we're about to show you. Now, during all the years that we've been helping people get out of shoulder pain, we've found that 90% of the time it comes down to this one thing, and that is the position of the shoulder and where that is in relation to the rib cage, the shoulder blade, and the clavicle. Now, one of the most common positions for the shoulder to be in is what's called an upper cross syndrome. With how we live our lifestyles at the minute, we are very sedentary, so we sit down a lot and we end up in this position as opposed to this position. Now, what this does is the shoulders roll forwards, the upper back curves over, and everything isn't in its ideal place. And it's this that leads to the shoulder pain. Now, it can lead to shoulder pain through a variety of different things. So it can just be the position in itself. Something's pulling at the back, something's pushing at the front, something just hurts. A very common one is what's called thoracic outlet syndrome. What that is because the shoulders are forward, everything moves forward, and you have a nerve that goes through the neck here, through two scalene muscles. What happens is when the head pushes forward and when the shoulders push forward, the gap that nerve goes through in those muscles gets smaller and starts pinching that nerve. And rather than having the pain then up here, what that does is because it's a nerve, it refers the pain all the way down the back of the arm and usually into the smallest two fingers. That pain in those two fingers is coming from the position of the shoulder and the position of the head. And what we're going to show you can help alleviate the symptoms immediately from thoracic outlet syndrome. It won't ensure that the pain won't ever come back. You'll have to see someone and get that position of the shoulder corrected more permanently, but it will alleviate the symptoms straight away. So how do we get out of the pain? How do we fix the problem? How do we reverse thoracic outlet syndrome? How do we stop impingement syndromes? 90% of the time it's because of very tight pecs, or tight pecs will help the problem 90% of the time. In your approach to fixing anything, whether it's shoulder pain, hip pain, whatever it is, The first solution should always be the simplest solution, or the first thing you try should always be the simplest solution. There's no point, if you've got a little bit of shoulder pain, going straight in for an invasive surgery that's going to cut things off and tape things to different places, because it might not work. And there's much bigger risk than there is potential reward with that scenario. So what you want to do is try the simplest thing first. And what we're going to show you now is that simple thing. So you want to set yourself up, whether it's using a Swiss ball. You don't have to use a Swiss ball. You can use anything that you can put your arm up on. A sofa, a chair, a bed, whatever it is, a wall. You can do this one standing up as well. And you're going to set it up so whatever you're using, we're going to assume that you are using a Swiss ball. So you want to set the ball up so it's as close to the shoulder that you are stretching as you possibly can. You're going to be on your knees and your other hand is going to be on the floor. From here, all we're going to do is drop both shoulders down together, and you should feel a stretch across the front of the shoulder of the arm that is up on the ball. And all you're going to do is hold that for between 30 and 60 seconds, and depending on how tight it is, depends on how long you hold the stretch for. Now, once you've done the stretch, see how you feel. Get up, move your shoulder around. Does it feel better? If it doesn't, and your shoulder doesn't feel any worse, just try it again. Try stretching 3, 4, 5 times, see if it gets any better after that. If it gets worse, don't do it again. Chances are that the position of the shoulder being forwards isn't what's causing your shoulder pain. And what you're going to do then is go and find the next simplest solution. I would recommend find a shoulder specialist of some sort who can look at your shoulder and diagnose it. If your shoulder does feel better after doing the stretch, brilliant. Chances are it's because of where your shoulder is in relation to the rest of your body. But keep doing the stretch. Just because you're out of pain doesn't mean that the problem has then gone away. Pain shouldn't be the only motivator. It should be not getting back into pain that motivates you to keep doing that stretch, keep finding other solutions that will help with the shoulder pain, and have a nice healthy shoulder in the long run. Give it a try and let us know how you get on with it. Thank you for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already, click the button below and subscribe, and check out our latest videos just here.